Hello and welcome to another Magic the Gathering video, and something that I hope is going to be a start of an ongoing series. So for quite a while now I've been wrestling with the idea of doing another series, but I wanted to have something that was fairly easy to create and produce and didn't involve an awful lot of sort of post-production, if you like. One of the nice things about doing unboxing videos is, for me anyway, they're fairly easy to create. You know, you just basically step the camera up on a tripod to a flat surface and open the stuff. And then when you shoot it, I don't do any editing. I just rely on the sound from the camera, and you just upload it. And after I finished the most recent video, which was the Amonkhet Deck Builder's Toolkit unboxing, I was noticing some of my magic stuff, and one thing that I had on the shelf, which you can see is fairly careworn here, which is this was a one-off magazine. As far as I know, there was only ever one issue of it by Beckett, and it was released around about the time that Rise of the Eldrazi came out. So I'm flicking through this, and of course it was bringing back very fond memories of sets coming out. I just probably started filming unboxings, I think, that year. I probably didn't do, I don't know if I did any unboxings for Worldwake or the actual intro packs, and maybe, I know I definitely unboxed the toolkit. I don't know that much. So I'm looking through this, and at first I thought, well, I could create a fairly high production value series looking, at years in Magic and the product that came out, because there's a big debate going on at the moment about the sheer amount of product that's being pushed out by Wizards, and I was curious as to how does that compare to when I first sort of really started to buy products seriously from a collector's point of view. Now, as you know, I previously, the earliest set I bought was 10th edition, but once I had that particular set, I didn't really do much beyond that. I got sidetracked with life, and as a consequence of that, what was going on around that time, ended up happily in Canada, Nova Scotia. But it wasn't until I actually got over here and was settled in that my thoughts turned back to Magic. And so for me, 2010 was a really pivotal year. So going through this magazine, it brought back lots of memories of sort of cards and the stuff that was coming out. We can see here we've got Scars and Mirrodin coming out in October. We had that not so successful Magic Tactics, which was on the was it the PS3, and lots of apps appearing on iPhone. And then there was a big player's guide to Rise of the Eldrazi, and this was before I'd sort of got back into buying fat packs again. So I wasn't seeing the I was buying boosters, and I wasn't sort of seeing that nice player's guide. But what struck me is, wouldn't it be interesting for me to just go through all of this stuff and re-examine as almost like a celebration of a sort of my passage through Magic collecting. Lots of interesting names came up in here. There's articles by Benny Smith, who I've read quite a lot of his articles online, again particularly within the EDH Commander articles, and also Abe Sargent did several articles in here. Again, I've read quite a lot of his deck articles about EDH Commander decks and casual play. So there's a ton of stuff in here. And then I started noticing adverts for sort of upcoming product. There was somewhere in here, there was an article about the most recent to be released Duel deck, And as I'm going through, I'm thinking, I've got quite a bit of this stuff. You know, wouldn't it be better for me to just, you know, do the simple unboxing setup with the tripod, the camera, flat surface, and just go back through some of this stuff in the interest of nostalgia? And that way I haven't got to, you know, try and put this together in a, you know, Prezi format or using some sort of, you know, presentation software that I've got access to on my machine, which involves an awful lot of, you know, finding card images and lots of pre and post production. And so what I did was I compiled a list of, for 2010, I went onto one of my favorite sites, which is the MTG wiki, and printed out a list of the releases for that year. So this is for 2010. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subdivide this series into sort of chunks, and each chunk will be a year in Magic, and within that each episode will be a quarter. So what I'm planning to do is a sort of Saturday morning Magic type thing, where each Saturday I push out a video about one quarter in a year of Magic, and we'll go through and just reflect on some of the stuff that came out. I'm not going to have everything. Some of the stuff I never bought. You know, I didn't buy every single intro pack. I didn't buy every single seal product. I probably bought a representation of cards from that particular thing. A lot of the special stuff, like the dual decks, the arch enemy stuff, I'm likely to have all of that, and the EDH stuff, because I just made a point of collecting that. And some of the premium special decks, that short run series I've got. Other stuff, not so much. I mean, I don't have from the vault stuff as much, and stuff like the toolkits, although I've done, you know, all the videos are up there on my channel, but those have been subsequently broken up into put into other things. So you know, I might mention some of the stuff in passing with that, but I'll pretty much be skipping over. So we're going to start off for this episode, so episode 1 of this particular 2010 block, with a look at the all foil booster packs for Alara. So for the Alara block, which had been released the previous years, they in 2010 decided to create booster packs which contained cards from the whole block. So we're talking about 500 and something cards, and they were all foil. So you can imagine the variance was pretty high in that. The product didn't go down particularly well, I don't think. They were priced around $11.99 in the US. In Canada, I don't know what they were because I didn't buy them at the time. They probably ended up about $15. Subsequent, I bought about 5 packs of them. I think 4 online, which I did an unboxing for, and then another 1 which I think I picked up at Walmart, massively reduced. If you go online now, I've seen prices ridiculously high for these. I don't think it's really worth it myself. Fine if you manage to pull some foil planeswalker from the block, but unfortunately the variance is so high on these booster packs that you don't know what you're going to get. So let's have a look through what limited I've got in here. One of the things that's nice when you do have like all foils like this side by side is you can definitely see a big contrast in what cards seem to foil better than others in terms of the imaging. And what's nice is once you start to look at foils a bit more, you sort of get an eye for non-foil cards which you think, oh, if I ever get a chance to look through a binder at a store, maybe I should look out for the foil version of that card, because potentially that could be quite nice. So we've got some nice things here like Soul's Fire. I don't know how that's coming up on the camera. You can sort of see there. Pretty cool foiling going on there. Hopefully I haven't got too much glare going on from the actual binders here. at this point in time, for the early stuff, my method of keeping my cards is pretty quirky. As you can see, I've got rares, commons and uncommons all together here. I'm sort of sorting out my Magic collection to have a much more logical organisation. At the moment, these are going in by colour and then ascending mana cost. But I've switched over to a different system where basically I put all my rares and foils in one binder and then all the commons in the fat pack boxes, and then sort of sorted alphabetically. So there we go. Let me just see. Maybe that's better. Yeah, so like I said, it's pulling down from, you can see it maintains the original set icons, or set symbols, sorry. So you can see in here we've got Shards of Alara set symbol there, the Conflux set symbol, and then down here you can see there's a couple of nice Thopter foundries here. I'll get one of these out. You can see we've got the sort of Alara Reborn. In fact, the Alara Reborn's really interesting, in that I believe the whole set was all multicoloured cards. There wasn't one like actual monocoloured cards in there, excluding, I'm not sure, I'd have to look through the whole set whether they actually, all the artefacts in there as well also were coloured. I know what was interesting about the block as well is that the artifact cards, there were actually coloured artifacts in here, like monocolour artifacts in, I think, the Alara set, the main, Shards of Alara. Nice. Most of the stuff with like lightning on it always looks very impressive on this. There's a nice lightning there. I don't know if you can see that. Sigil Blessing. Got some nice sort of edge finishing on there. Oh, there's a border post. The other thing, there was a ton of fixing in each of the sets, and you had things like the border posts, which were in the final set, which were in Alara Reborn, and they were an artifact. But so you've got like artifact mana fixing going on in here. You've got there's things like Armillary Sphere, which is fetches out 2 basic lands. And you can see again, this is one with a nice touch on the foiling there. That the sort of, you see the colours of Magic there, standing out pretty well on there. And then there was the obelisks, which were in the original Shards of Alara set, which were like 3-colour shard fixing. And then in the same set you had the lands, these are the panoramas, which were fetching for the different types, 3 different types of land based on the shard. There's also the lands that come into play tap. There were some tap lands that also, when they untap, tap for 3 colours of the shard. So you can see, because of the nature of this sort of multicolour set, there was or the block as a whole, sorry, there was a ton of fixing going on in each of the sets. But yes, you can see that was the all foil Alara boosters. Like I said, they could be any card from the whole block. So we're talking something in the region of 540, somewhere around that figure, cards. So like very high variance there. So that was the first thing. That came out on January the 8th. Okay. So moving on to Worldwake, which came out on February the 5th. One thing to note this year, although we're going through the first quarter, there was pretty much something out every month except for December, I believe, in terms of cards. So a couple of things I've got here that we can talk about. One is the individual cards. So I don't have anything too So again, slightly quirky organisation at the moment until I get this particular binder sorted. Let's reposition this. That's okay. I want to try and sort of get everything there, but also make the cards so they're actually visible fairly well. So that will have to do for that. Okay, so so with Worldwake, we were in the middle set of the block. Okay, so in this particular set, what we were seeing is landfall. There was a landfall theme in the block as a whole, although what happened with, and we'll get on to Rise of the Eldrazi in a later video, which was sort of almost morphed into its own standalone set. It was like a reboot, but you know, a lot of landfall here. We've got a sort of a type of creature. Core was obviously prevalent in white, and we have, you know, basically cards that were caring about lands, like land matters. So we've got a Loam Lion that, you know, cares about you controlling a forest. There was some life gain in the set. You can see we've got a white rare here, Terra Eternal, makes all lands indestructible. We had this theme again with lands where stuff would become creatures, like lands would become creatures. We've got Guardian Zendikon. Enchanted land is a 2/6 white wall creature with Defender. It's still a land. Allies were a thing. Obviously we're looking at white there, so we're seeing some flyers in the set. Wind Zendikon. Again, you can see there's this sort of cycle of enchantments which enchant lands and then turn them into a creature. Multi-kicker was a thing. We've got Treasure Hunt in the set. Here's one of the legendary creatures, Thoda Edel Acquisitor. Got a nice foil twitch there. You can see again I've got this quirky system with going by colour, then casting cost basically. And we're moving on to black now, so we have Death Shadow. So single black for 13/13, and Death Shadow gets -1/-1, where X is your life total. And in Quest for the Nil Stone, there were a series of quests in this particular set. Vampires were also a thing in here. We've got a Calistria Highborn that cared about other vampires. There's my old friend Scribnibblers. A few insects as well, like creepy crawlies. Skitter of Lizards, Searing Blaze. There's Bestial Menace, so that's that card that puts a snake, wolf and elephant creature token into play. And Wolfbriar Elemental, another card with multi-kicker on it, puts 2/2 wolf creature token onto the battlefield for each time it was kicked. So clearly green, caring about tokens. And I put this in here. It was in the set, although this wasn't pulled from that. This was one that was pulled from one of those Walmart 3-pack things where you get like a foil premium card, Terastodon. There's another enchantment aura in green that chants a land, turns it into a creature. Lodestone Golem. A few of these as well, although these were pulled from packs. So what happened, just to explain, around this time, is I was opening something in the region, only about 10 to 12 boosters from a set. I hadn't got back into buying fat packs at that point, but for some things, for whatever reason, I seem to have purchased play sets for. So I actually have a play set in here, in addition to probably the card I pulled, because I didn't pull this many from a pack, from 10 packs or whatever it was. I have a play set of Everflowing Chalices. Pilgrim's Eye was in here. I don't know if why I would even do that. No, those were just pulled. But obviously, nice card in EDH Commander. And then I did pretty well. That there was one of the cool things about Worldwake is that there was, I think with the sets generally like Zendikar and Worldwake, is there were multi-layers of non-basic lands. What I mean by that is there were lands at each of the rarities. So you had sort of these rare creature lands here, and then we had a number of with like utility lands at uncommon, and then there was also sort of utility lands like monocolor utility lands that, you know, when they entered the battlefield did certain things in each of the colors. So the great thing with these particular lands is you had both color fixing, and it turned into some creature if you with the same sort of color combination to do that. So yeah, so that's actually the sum total of what I opened in terms of boosters. Obviously there's multiple copies of some of these. Now then, as I'm sort of collating things this morning, things get interesting in that something that crossed my mind was, at that time I seem to remember I was buying a couple of intro packs, but then what I remembered with Worldwake is one thing at that point. Intro packs were, I think, yeah, there were 41 cards. The 41st card was a foil. So they were actually not legal for constructed play, which was bizarre, and I believe caused a lot of issues at FNM where people would mistakenly try and play them. But somewhere along the line, I actually ended up buying all 5 of the decks from Worldwake. Which I suspect is some of those packs which ended up in there. Out of the 10 that I opened, 5 of them were probably from the boosters that were in these, included with these intro decks. Because I think at that point you had a 41 card deck, and then they gave you 1 booster pack. So obviously, each of these decks were designed to highlight a particular what's the word I'm looking for, like aspect of the particular set. Now you can see here these are going to contain cards. So they've got the land from the Zendikar set, because that's the artwork they use. Let me just pull out the lead card there. I haven't reordered these actually from whenever they were last played or shuffled. But you can see, just looking at the set symbols, we've got stuff. There's a Worldwake card, Ruthless Cullblade. And we've also got stuff from the core set. And one of the confusing things, if you're not used to, if you're fairly new to the game, over the years, Wizards have used various methods for identifying core sets, and at the time they were using this thing where, like, M10 came out in 2009, but it spanned from it was legal in standard from when it came out which would be the July of 2009, through to whenever it rotated, which would be October of 2010. So all the core sets only stayed in for a year. Another Worldwake card there. Diabolic Tutor was in M10, and of course don't forget the Vampire Nighthawk was in Zendikar. So obviously this deck, there's another. I'm trying to just fish out the rares. With the other problem with intro decks was always been that you didn't get, certainly with the newer ones, you know, as contrast to the theme decks, you didn't get a ton of rares. Maybe 2, possibly 3. I don't see any more than that here. As I'm flicking through. So that's uncommon. So this one, let me just see if I've got the original. So I kept all the packaging, and it should. I think on these, it actually, one of them included, each one included all of the, yeah. So this is the Fangs of the Bloodchief deck, I believe. Just do that. Yeah, so this was a vampire deck. So you can see there's the foil. There, it's not so easy to see, I don't think, in the, or is it? No, it's pretty dark. Yeah, so there was this foil was the Butcher of Malakir, creature vampire warrior flying. Whenever Butcher of Malakir or another creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices the creature. And then Anwan the Ruined Sage, which was a legendary creature they put in here. Wasn't, interesting enough, wasn't the lead card. It wasn't the foil. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player sacrifices a non-vampire creature. It's funny, whenever I look through these, the first thing I think when I look at sort of some of the lead cards, particularly if they're a legendary, is like, oh, what would that be like in a EDH deck? So this particular one, what have we got here? This is green-red, I'm assuming. We got, yeah, Lightning Bolt was in M10. I should have really organised these. Oh, there's Wolfbriar Elemental. That's the. Oh, there's Terastodon. There you go. And I think that's it. I'm pretty sure there was only. So the one I'm sorting through, I'm looking at that. Yeah, only 2 rares in these. So you can see this is. Like red-green with Terramorphic Expanses fixing from the M10 stuff. So this would have been the Brute Force deck. So this was, yeah, your sort of red-green creature aggro. So you got Wolfbriar Elemental that's generating tokens, and Terastodon that is also generating tokens. You know, interesting things you can do with Terastodon is basically you can blow up your own lands, turn them into 3/3 green elephants. Basically. So yeah, red green. You got, you know, things like Overrun in here, Giant Growth. There's a Leatherback Baloth. You got Mana Dorks. Fastwood Zendikon. There's removal. Giant spiders in here for dealing with flyers. So anyway, you get the gist of that. There. Let's moving swiftly on. So what was another deck in this particular set? These are very slippery. Be a better way of organising these. There's one thing this is going to make me do is rethink my organisation. Okay, blue-white. So I'm assuming, yeah, some sort of blue-white flyers with. Oh, there we go. The thing about as well with there's a floating chalice in here. The other thing you notice as a dread statuary, another one of those sort of utility lands I was talking about at uncommon, also turns into a creature. Hang on, I just missed. So, you know, blue-white, what have they called this one? Probably fly over deck, blue-white flyers. So again, you've got, there's multi-kicker in the set, so you're gonna see that on some of these cards. You got stuff that's going to tap stuff down while you're sort of getting your flyers out. You know, with any blue-white flyers deck, because a lot of the flyers tend to be higher costed, anything that's like that, you've got to have something that's going to just temporarily stop your opponent from getting in for damage early on. So one way to do that is have a lot of, you know, a sort of low cost ground troops, or have, you know, it's basically bounce spells, tap down spells, you know, cheap sort of removal or stuff, you know, stuff that's going to lock down your opponent whilst you're sort of building up and getting in a position where you can actually start casting your flyers. Again, we've got a couple of rares here. There's the foil, which is Archon of Redemption. Whenever Archon of Redemption or another creature with flying into the battlefield under your control, you may gain life equal to that creature's power. It's a bit of life gain going on here. And then Marshal's Anthem. Creatures you can control get +1/+1. It's got multi-kicker on it. When Marshal's Anthem enters the battlefield, return up to X target creature cards from your graveyard to your battlefield, where X is the number of times Marshal's Anthem's kicked. So again, it's sort of exploiting the fact that, you know, to get where you are, you may have had to sacrifice quite a few creatures in battle, and that's one way to sort of get those back. Okay, so we got green blue. So what was green blue about? It was called Mysterious Realms. Fearsome creatures, apparently. Okay. So what do we care about? We got flying and more flying. Oh, there's Calcite Snapper with Shroud, Treasure Hunt, Telepathy. So I'm having trouble gripping these now, they're getting rather slippery. Oh, there's my foil. Must have missed my other rare. Oh, there it is. Here's some. I didn't see that. So what you're going to find in this set as well, because of the heavy land cares theme, you're going to get landfall all over the place. So we've got Seer Sundial with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. And then the Goliath Sphinx, which is the foil, is basically a 5 and 2 blue 8/7, just simply with flying. So we got a bit of a mixed bag in there. So there was a landfall thing going on. You know, ways of sort of controlling the battlefield. There was a bit of card draw, a bit of tap down. So you know, that one's a bit of a hodgepodge deck, really, I think. And without, you know, going into any great detail on that, obviously there could be some subtleties on there that I'm missing out in my attempt to sort of get through all of these. But I'm just looking just to see. Yeah, there seems to be, it was definitely carrying, that one was sort of, you know, did have a landfall theme in it. Yeah, so I think that was sort of a bit more in the landfall area. And then we have a red-white deck here. So this is rapid fast, so we got red-white aggro, things like active. It's obviously we're going to try and steal other stuff. We got step links. You know, responds well to landfall. Chain reaction, that was a rare. Searing Blaze, Cozy's Revenge, Teetering Peaks. There's another one of these so utility lands at common. Grotog Thrasher. Pilgrim's Eye, I'd mentioned about that one for card draw. Or sorry, not card draw, for land. Land ramp. Yes, I should organise these. Oh, there's our foil. Nice dragon. Magna Riff, another Pilgrim's Eye, Plains and a core firewall card. I don't know if there's any specifically. There is a. Oh no, there's only Teetering Peaks in there on the land. So some of these did have a little bit of actual, you know, land fixing. Others just relied on cards that sort of fixed that. So Mordant Dragon was in here. So that was our foil. So 3 and 3 red, flying. 1 and a red Mordant Dragon gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Whenever Mordant Dragon deals combat damage to a player, you may have it deal that much damage to a target creature. And then Chain Reaction was the other rare, non-foil. 2 and 2 red, sorcery, Chain Reaction deals X damage to each creature, or X is the number of creatures in the on the battlefield. So very much like red-white aggro. You know, get everything out, start smashing face. Oh, there's a Dragon Whelp as well, there you go. Okay, so the last thing on the list, and I think I'm running out of space on the flash drive on this camcorder, so we will move swiftly on. Is the Duel deck. So very interesting Duel deck. So at the time it came out, I got these decks from, I think Toys R Us were doing these. So we got Phyrexia versus the Coalition. So this one, notes gone, which I've probably lost. Okay, so when did we do that? So Worldwake came out February the 5th. Yeah, the Duel decks came out on March the 19th. Wow. Okay, Phyrexia. So this deck's fairly straightforward. It's basically a mono black deck. These were the Duel. This was the Duel deck. So there's 2 Duel decks a year. Came with tokens, Minion token and a Hornet token. These ones I've reorganised, so I was better prepared. So the foil card in this was Phyrexian Negotiator, and that was actually badged up at Mythic. So 2 and a black for 5/5 trample. Whenever Phyrexian Negotiator is dealt damage, sacrifice that many permanents. Phyrexian Arena was in here. So these are the rares. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. 1 and 2 black. Living Death, so this lets you get stuff back from the graveyard. Each player exiles all creature cards from his or her graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures he or she controls, then puts all cards he or she exiled this way onto the battlefield. So obviously timing is really important with this. The idea is that you're aiming to actually have a ton of creatures in your graveyard, so when you effectively wipe the board, you have more stuff coming back than your opponent does. And what you'll notice with this deck as we're going through this, many of these cards either facilitate or, you know, sacrificing in some way. There's some mana pump in here as well. As we go through, we're going through sort of the uncommon, so we're getting onto sort of utility here. We've got flying black creatures. A lot of the stuff here, there's a, you know, an expense to do some of this stuff. And again, some of this has been tuned for the deck it's up against. So this destroys a target green creature. As you'll see, the Coalition deck was reasonably heavily green based in here. So we've got some sort of black removal. We've got stuff with fear. There's quite a nice selection of artifacts in this particular deck. Some of which wouldn't be out of place in like EDH Commander. You know, we've got things like Lightning Greaves, Wisp of Shield Cloak, Warm Power Stone. And then there's other things like Phyrexian Totem, Phyrexian Vault, Puppet Strings. So there's quite a heavy amount of artifacts in here that do various things. You can see this is where the Hornet token comes from. Got a vanilla Phyrexian Hulk there. There's a couple of dark rituals for black mana. So there's mono black, and then of course it's not surprising because of its mono black to see Tendrils of Corruption in here. and then basically it's just swamps all the way down. Okay, and then finally, hopefully my camera doesn't cut out, we have the Coalition deck. So the Coalition deck, the problem with this is it was actually 5 colour, and there's not a ton of fixing in this. It's predominantly forests with mountains, plains, and then 1 each of swamps and islands. There's a Shivin Oasis, an Elfin Palace, and some terramorphic expanses, and a sapling token because it generates saplings, in an attempt to try and get this playable. So obviously there's stuff all over the place in here. We've got a lot of these cards are from Urza's Saga. So we've got Urza's Rage, Gerard's Caspian. There's 3 dragons in here. Coalition Regate. The 3 charms to go with the dragons. Battle Mage Cycle. So you can see some really interesting cards from all over Magic. There's obviously quite a bit of, mana, sort of land fixing type stuff because of this fact that it's, a 5 colour deck. We've got Armadillo Cloaks, Tribal Flames. So the nice thing is you're sort of pulling resources from all over Magic in terms of the different colours. But in order to cater for that, a lot of the cards have to be able to fix mana. So there we have it. I hope that's been interesting for everybody. Sorry the last bit was a little bit rushed. I think in going forward I'm going to try and pace these a little better. So there we have it. So 2000